When was the last time you saw your children?
The day I was arrested.
The stakes were high at Tracy Richter's murder trial. This mother, who could be looking at a future in a prison cell without her children, says she was being punished for protecting them.
This is an admirable story for a lot of Americans. This is a woman defending her cubby bears at the risk of her own life, huh?
That's exactly what
protecting them from peril.
That's certainly what we believe happened that night.
Tracy's defense attorney, Scott Banstra and Carmen Anderson, didn't want the jurors to lose sight of the woman they believed their client to be, a heroic mother. Her story certainly seemed much easier to believe than the prosecution's theory of an elaborate frame-up to resolve a custody dispute.
Common sense tells you that you don't plot, plan, and execute a murder during this hour time frame when you have 3 children at home.
As for the journal, the defense argued, forget about it. It may be a good yarn, but it doesn't tell you who killed Dustin and is irrelevant to the case, a red herring.
As far as him going in the home or Tracy having him come into home to author his journal, I mean, there is absolutely no evidence to support that.
Tracy and I wouldn't talk about the attack a lot.
And the testimony of Tracy's best friend, Mary Higgins. Garbage, said the defense.
When she's interviewed in 2002 and 2003, she makes no reference to any journal. Mary gave 4 or 5 different versions of what she allegedly knew and what she didn't know.
Let's take it back to basics, the defense told the jury. The evidence supported Tracy's story of a home invasion, it argued, but investigators had missed it because of their incompetent police work.
And that was one of our biggest hurdles in the case, was they didn't do what they needed to do.
The crime scene had been contaminated from the outset, the defense argued. Paramedics had stepped in Dustin's blood, evidence had been lost, and basic forensics had been botched.
Tracy Richter's clothes were not retrieved after the shooting.
That's correct. The defense argued that Tracy's injuries spoke for themselves. They were the marks of someone who had been strangled. The doctor who had treated her at the ER said he never doubted her story. But perhaps the investigators' biggest omission, the defense argued, was in giving up on the hunt for that second intruder. They presented the jury with a possible suspect for that person, someone who'd been having an affair with Dustin's mother, Mona Weedy, and had left town abruptly after the attack.
And you thought it was suspicious that he broke up with you immediately after Dustin's death?
I did.
You believe he's the second man?
Well, yes, absolutely.
And so it appeared did Tracy. When the defense's alternate suspect was called to the stand, Tracy wept, her body language gasping in effect. Yes, this is the man who tried to kill me and got away.
Was she acting for the jury, Carmen?
I don't believe so.
Absolutely not.
No.
The man adamantly denied any involvement in the break-in.
Did any time you go with Dustin Weedy and try to attack Tracy Richter?
No. The defense then put Dustin Weedy, the alleged perpetrator turned victim, on trial. According to their portrayal of the long-dead boy, he was an unpredictable young man, perfectly capable of lashing out and committing the crime.
You testified yesterday on...
During the cross-examination of Dustin's mother, the defense attorney asked Mona about occasions when Dustin had lost his temper in the Weedy home.
You were afraid to leave your daughters alone with Dustin prior to the death, weren't you?
I wasn't afraid to leave him alone. I didn't like to leave my children alone.
He also confronted Mona with her son's medical records.
There were parent-child relationship problems, attention deficit disorder, and oppositional defiant disorder.
That's what the report says.
Do you need to take a break now?
No.
Mona told the jury that yes, her son had been difficult, but not violent. She said she'd never told Tracy that Dustin was a threat to her or her other 2 children.
They made Dustin look like the bad boy and the violent child and the violent adult. It was horribly hard for me to listen to that.
But what about the other boy at the heart of this crime, Tracy's son, Bert? He was going to be the defense's trump card.
All right, this is a guardian angel right here, and that right there is the head of a demon.
Bert has an elaborate tattoo depicting the home invasion.
And that's my mom.
His mother is pictured as the hero.
I know for a fact that if my mom didn't do what she did,
I would be dead.
Now his mother was relying on him to save her from a life behind bars. Tracy sobbed as her son took the stand.
How do you feel about being here today, Bert?
Pretty nervous.
Bert walked the jurors through the home invasion.
I heard someone coming towards my door.
And what did you do?
I still had my bat ready to hit whoever came in first.
Bert told the jury there was no mistaking Dustin's criminal intent. He had a disturbing look on his face.
Angry and threatening.
And how did you feel when you saw Dustin?
I was very, very, very scared.
And did Dustin say anything to you at that time?
Yes, he told me to stay in the room. My mom was dead and I was next.
Bert told the jury how he'd seen Dustin trying to get back up after he'd been shot.
I thought that the threat was back on.
Were you afraid you were going to die?
Yes,
Were you afraid for your brother and your sister?
absolutely.
Were you afraid for your mom?
Absolutely.
There was no doubt about it, Bert said. His mother had shot Dustin to protect him and his siblings. He adamantly denied what Tracy's best friend had told the jury, that he'd been upset with his mother for going back to shoot Dustin again.
Do you have a recollection of that ever occurring?
No, sir. Absolutely not.
If Bert was telling the truth, there was no doubt he had experienced something truly terrifying, something unforgettable. Would his memories be enough to convince the jury his mother was his savior and not a killer?
Coming up, Tracy decides not to take the stand and face prosecutors' questions, but she does answer ours.
When they looked at the injury to your neck, it just seemed to be some kind of sawing back and forth abrasion. Did you fake it? Did you do that to yourself?
And then, the jury's verdict.